I don't know how to make this video. Not saying that I don't know how to make this video, like if I should. It's whether if I should split up into multiple parts because there's a lot to cover. We're going to be talking about Ava Tyson, what's happening with her, and then also people that were associated with stuff that she is being accused of liking, and so on. And I want to start off by saying any transphobia, bigotry, and so on will just be blocked. There is no place for it here. I could argue all day with you, but I'm trying to just leave it out of there because there is no reason to be transphobic just because one person does horrible things, right? And also, by the way, I've seen a lot of people being like, they set us back. She set us back like 100 years. There's nothing to be set back, dude. There is still so much transphobia in the world that there has been no ground being made. But anyway, let's get right into talking about Ava Tyson, what's happened with her. I want to first start off by saying she is not at all of what's happened with Dr. Disrespect, right? Dr. Disrespect wanted to have sex with a 13-year-old or 16, whatever, right? I could be getting those two numbers mixed around, but he wanted to meet up with a minor when he was well into his 20s. Ava Tyson made inappropriate, yes, inappropriate comments many, many years ago. Now, again, I'm not saying that just because it was many years ago that makes it right now. But it's one of those things where you can clearly see the development of a person over time, right? Where she has become more of the person that she wants to be, transition and everything like that. And obviously, being trans does not excuse you from horrible things. All of the Nazi trans people out there are proof enough of that, right? But they are. There's a lot going on with it that then is like, okay, the person came out and was like, look, it was a long time ago, nothing. I'm the victim here, and I'm saying it's fine, whatever. And then there's people that come out and be like, well, you're still groomed. You fucking idiot. Right? Like, just ending up being angry at the victim, like, and then being like, oh, you just have money to cover up and without ever thinking that possibly somebody many years later be like, oh yeah, that did happen. Whatever. It's okay. It happened many years ago, and now I don't really think about it that much. So yeah, we both grown as people. But there is one thing that is unexcusable, and that is the accusation of liking Shadman's art, and you know who he is, right? The guy that draws fucking pedo art, right? Um, and that is a whole nother can of worms, because if that comes out to be true, and I've seen some stuff, some like deleted screenshots of her defending some stuff and then being like really weird about lolly art and lolicon and other things like that, and that's just no, that's unexcusable. Out of here. Like no excuse for her to be doing that whatsoever. Um, Kicked off Mr. Beast, whatever, so on and so forth for that kind of shit, right? Um, but there is also the other part of me that I do know that there is a possibility. Now, this is not me being like, well, maybe, like, trying to give an excuse. I'm just trying to think of multiple different things, right? It could just possibly be one of those things of being like, oh, well, that's cute art, and not realizing it's supposed to be NSFW. Uh, because I've known plenty of people who will see stuff like that and be like, oh, that's cute art, but then realizing, oh, it's fetish art. Never mind. Like, not related to NSFWs of minors, but in like if anything, right? Whether it be like, name something, right? That you're like, oh, you see, and like, oh, that's, then you're, oh, fuck, right? I'm sure that's happened to a lot of people on Twitter where you see a lot of stuff and you're like, oh, that's a nice render of Tracer from Overwatch. Oh, that's porn, right? Um, but yeah, inexcusable, right? If that's what's going on. And then there's all the stuff that was recently happening with Jimmy, and apparently how a lot of the stuff that was going on with his company is really morally bankrupt and stuff like that, which happened about 3 days ago. As of the time I read that AMA, I don't know if it's any real or not. It very well could be, um, but you never know with those kinds of things. And it's there just needs to be more that comes out with that just to kind of see, and also depending on how Mr. Beast responds to it, will kind of dictate whether or not it was real, right? Obviously now Ava Tyson has stepped away from her position on Mr. Beast's team and so on and so forth, and I'm going to also talk about how everyone's just been transphobic about it, straight up. Like there was the Flight Reacts thing, be like, he knew from the start that something was wrong. No, it was transphobia. It was seeing a trans person be like, "Ugh." Right? That's how everyone's been reacting to this. Misgendering her, or saying that all trans people are like this, or saying that this proves something, or some stereotype, or so on and so forth, and just being the most horrible, just being the fucking worst, dude. Just being the fucking worst on Twitter, on all sorts of other websites. I mean, luckily, I haven't seen too much of it in YouTube comments, but everywhere on like TikTok, it's just fucking vile and reprehensible, right? Um, and there's no excuse for it. There isn't. Just because one person does a bad thing, you're like, oh, well, that means that that entire group that's a minority is bad, right? It's not like it's a major group, right? Like a huge major population where it's built fundamentally on certain principles and certain ideas and ideologies, right? um, and then also some stuff has recently come out with Mr. Beast of old videos of him saying shit. A lot of it is edgy shit, and look, if you say edgy shit or you say some slurs in the past and so on and so forth, don't ignore it. Say sorry now, right? Same thing with the whole PewDiePie situation. He never fucking apologized for all like the bridge incident, right? And like, sure, people will be like, oh, but he's happy now. Like, okay, great, but that doesn't mean that the people that he hurt, or like the racism towards Indians or other things like that, was ever apologized for, right? That was a part of his viewer base that was alienated because of shit that he said and did. So apologize for it and actually be genuine about it, right? If you do something bad, even if it was in the past, unless you have seen to have developed as a person since then, not just seemingly having a happy life, you need to apologize and do something for it. If you've never made changes to try and make up for the harm that you caused. Then let's get into all the stuff that has happened with Shadman. His website got shut down, obviously for all the pedophilia on there and child exploitative imagery and so on, which was drawn. And before anyone says, "Well, that's not illegal," yes, it is. It is illegal. There was a ruling. There has been multiple rulings by Supreme Court in the United States that says that is illegal if it is very obviously of a minor, right? As a lot of his work was. Because Jesus fucking Christ, it was fucking everywhere on Twitter years and years back, and unfortunately, it has come across my feed. But with that happening, of his website being shut down, there has now been a list of people that have come out that have been supporters of him and defenders of him. People like Elvis the Alien or Ava Tyson has been accused of. There has been even the guy, Psychic Pebbles, Zach Hadel, right, of Smiling Friends and everything, was accused of being on there as well, and has apparently like made comments very long time ago. And for those of you who don't know, that guy was very different back in the day, right? He was a fucking defender of JonTron back in the day. He was very different than what he is is now. But still, it's one of those things where, like, say something about it, like apologize or something, um, or take actions to right the wrongs that you have made. And I guess I guess all the like homophobia from and transphobia of JonTron was made up in in the wake of Zach Hadel by making Smiling Friends and all the queer people liking that show. Um, but yeah, there's been so many people on that list. I think one of them was a really popular political YouTuber. What was her name? The girl. Shoe on Head. That was it. Yeah. She was also on that list too. And then there was another political one on there as well that I'm trying to think of the name. I had an entire list saved at one point, or it's on my bookmarks. But yeah, so many people, and I see so many people on there. I'm like, I knew that there was something fucked up with these guys. Like, I just had a vibe. But if you say, like, I don't, like, if I were to go out and be like, I don't think that this person's a good person, they're like, but what about all this? It's like, dude, it's just a vibe. It seriously is. Like, I'm an extremely empathetic person, right? The autistic, ADHD, everything like that, all, like, the superpower of empathy, whatever. Like, it's just, it lets me kind of know if someone is being sus as fuck. And a lot of times, whenever I hear about things, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I knew that they were sus as fuck from the very beginning. Just the way that they kind of like acted and held themselves, and the way that they talked about certain things. You're like, you. Yeah. So that entire list has been exposed, um, and more and more vile people have been coming out by the day of defending Shadman or defending his art or so on, or just coming out as being horrible transphobic pieces of shit because of Ava Tyson or other things like that, right? Because, like, this whole situation can be much more nuanced than just, oh, she did a bad thing, fucking go after her. No. One, the victim came out and was like, okay, that's fine. Okay, that issue has been dismissed. That does not excuse the other thing going on as well. But again, wading through all the transphobic and bigoted comments and everything like that makes it hard to actually have a conversation and actually talk about this, right? Without having somebody sound like a fucking insane, crazy person that's a conspiracy theorist, right? Just spouting off slurs and being the most heated person you've ever seen in your life, right? Yeah, but that about sums up everything that was going on with that and my opinion on that. And obviously, whenever it comes to these videos, I try and give as much of my opinion as possible. Because again, this is not news. I am not a news person. These are my opinions. So, yeah. Fuck Shadman. He was never a buff guy that was a Giga Chad that drew pedo art. He is a scrawny dude that is also very, very racist. And also like a white supremacist. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna go make another video talking about another horrible thing going on. Stay tuned for that one, I guess. Click.